My good friends, how are you doing? I hope everyone is well. Thank you for clicking on my newer channel, my second channel here that I use to do a little more weirder stocks that I don't talk about on the main channel here. Maybe things that people aren't really looking at. It's got a smaller crowd attached to it. But thank you. I want to talk about them, and we're going to talk about Applied Digital. We're going to talk about Tempus. I think these stocks you need to watch 100%. I think this could lead to really big money. I think they're very unique companies. I think they're very futuristic stocks right now. I don't think they've had their moment in the market. Even Tempus, as hard as it's ran here, it's still, there's a lot to be said that it is doing very well. Quarterlies just came out again here, and they shocked the system again. So let's talk about it. Let's go right into it. Tempus. So quarterlies just came out here with Q2, and they met quarterlies again. So now we're over $300 million per quarterly. Okay, great. Now, this is obviously Tempus. It's got Nancy Pelosi attached to it. Even Kathy Woods is attached to Tempus too. So you've got two different investors right there. You got Nancy, who has a huge winning streak in the market. No one can explain. We're not going to get into that. And then you've got Kathy, who, is very much ARK Investment. Kathy is very much into futuristic stocks, which I love, and she's very optimistic about the future in tech that will control the market. And Tempus, healthcare, AI mixed together, it's got everyone's attention here. But now that Tempus is continuing to be on this path of, the last two quarterlies, Q1 of this year, Q2 of this year, have been okay. They're making money now. Obviously, it's a newer company. They've got, it's a structure situation right now. Okay, there's still lots to come. We're not even $500 million quarterly range, but we're definitely getting closer. And we could be in a conversation as time goes on here. We could see quarterlies really push into 15, 20, 30% range on top of each quarterly, maybe more. But right now, this is still very much a movement that is occurring before us. So Tempus is playing around where it's been playing around here in this, high $50 range, low $60 range. On a good day, we get back to $70 price tag on it. So it's obviously it is a very expensive stock for where it's at right now. I'm not going to argue with you right there. So for people saying why am I paying so much money for this stock when it's not even bringing out a $400 million quarterly? There's a lot of hype attached to it. There's a lot of what if attached to it. You've got names attached to the stock right now. And I think, what I've seen right now, and I've been saying this, so I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record right now, but it's the God's honest truth that, with Tempus here, I think a lot of people go I don't know what Tempus is. I don't care if they're selling fish bait. I don't care. The fact that Nancy Pelosi is involved in this company, that she has been buying it, she's trading on it. It has my attention, and the fact that now ARK Investment, Kathy talks about this stock. She talks about, she's talked about it in interviews how psyched she is to be a part of it and what's going to happen with it. So those two pillars in the market have been keeping the stock very much in this realm of very high inflation paying for it. But not to mention too, you've just got the company itself where it's tech, it's healthcare, it's two huge industries. It's a very new path with a stock in the market, and frankly it's very interesting, and I think a lot of people are getting in here and making positions. And as long as this company keeps coming out here with these kind of quarterlies, I mean, even if it's just a slow progression into what it's doing right now, into this, each quarterly it's doing better than the last one, this is really going to keep these prices. And I'm going to be honest, I've said this for a long time now, but I do think that Tempus could easily, within 6-month range here, anywhere in that, especially with the market doing, continue to do well here, we could be in $100 range here. I think obviously a lot of that is hype. It's FOMO. It's people not wanting to miss out. It's the fact that Tempus will not have a bad day here. It's that the stock is holding this position at this $60, $70 range on a good day. We've already had it higher than that. So I do believe that this stock could easily trail into $100 range here, especially especially once it rounds out this year with quarterlies by the time Q4 comes out here. And let's say that Tempus can move into, closer to 400, maybe over $400 million per quarterly. Now we're getting into the conversation of, okay, revenue well over $1 billion, which they're already projected to do. But, as long as they keep coming out with these good quarterlies and it has these names attached to it, I think Tempus is just going to always be an expensive stock. It just is. It just is what it is. There's no other way to say it. And if you want to be a part of it, you're going to have to pay for it. I still feel the same way about Tempus as I did months ago. It is a very manipulated stock, but in a good way, to where you're able to shuffle around it, not get caught in positions. Like I said, I believe the Tempus could easily go back to $70 here any time frame here on out, and it can easily slide back down into this low, mid $50 range. But the fact that quarterlies are still showing, they're still showing moving up here, it's that's the scary part of saying, well, for people that are saying, well, it's going to sell down to $10, it's going to sell down to $20 because it's not going to bring in much more money. Those conversations are going to probably fade out and die out a lot more here because we're just not seeing that right now. And too, I'll say this and then I'll shut up. If you follow Nancy Pelosi in her investing career, and obviously I hate to use, I want to make it known that I don't believe that Nancy is physically buying stocks and on her phone. That's not what I know. She has her own brokers, her own system, that kind of thing. But what we've seen here with Nancy in the past is that Nancy, obviously we know she's getting tips, she's got someone in her ear, there's something going on. She finds out about a company before something happens. So what we've seen is that Nancy will buy into companies sometimes years, sometimes months, year or so before we see something big happen with the company. Okay, she did this with Nvidia. She was buying Nvidia before Nvidia really got rolling here, and then it got people's attention, of course, when that happened years ago. And my God, look at Nvidia now. So Nancy here, she'll wait. Her investments, she will buy them increasingly ahead of schedule here. And then somewhere down the road, something big happens with the company, something. So it's hard for me to believe that Tempus is not going to continue to do well. It's hard for me to believe that Tempus is not going to come out with some kind of revolutionary product movement for them, as they're working on, obviously. I find it hard not to believe that. Okay, so I still think there's a great argument here that Tempus is going to do very well at a very fast rate here going into 2026 here. And I think that's why it still has a lot of people's attention. And that's one reason why I don't think it's ever at this point, as long as these people are involved with it, that it's going to really dramatically sell off. I just don't. I just don't. So that's kind of where I'm at with Tempus, really. Now, moving into Applied Digital. Applied Digital, I really think this is something that people need to pay attention to. So Applied Digital this year, with the quarterlies that have come out so far, have been very like this. But this has still been the best year so far for revenue. I mean, it's been, it's been an amazing year for revenue. So there's this very weird argument to have with Applied Digital right now, where it's like, well, they missed their quarterlies. Well, they missed the quarterlies, but it was still the most massive amount of revenue the company's ever produced. So it's this very it's like an argument you could have with, a blank wall, where it's like it really doesn't lead to anything, because at the end of the day, the company's still making massive amounts of money in a very short time. And so investors are looking at that and going like, well, when I invest in a company, I want them to make a lot of money. I want them to at least beat quarterlies, come close to quarterlies. Well, we're getting that with Applied Digital. So, this conversation right now with Applied Digital, this is a situation with, it's a very, how do I say this? It's a very new position right now that we're seeing in the market, where we have these data center companies that are taking other companies' data, storing it. So they're kind of like, military bases almost. These facilities like Applied Digital, because they're heavily guarded because they have very, they're keeping data, but are also developing it, their software, everything, to do this, to run these facilities. But they're taking in massive amounts of money. So as we go further into the future with tech, software, data, it's hard to say that, that Applied Digital does not have a future in that, because it's almost like this new gold mine where, we're just seeing this massive amount of revenue be poured into these data companies like this. And Applied Digital is getting a lot of attention. They're getting more partnerships. They're getting more deals. They're building. They're moving fast. They are moving fast. So I don't know that, and they just had that deal here where, over the next 10 years, they're going to be bringing in billions of dollars. I don't know that Applied Digital is going to be like $100 stock here within amount of time, with 2 years time. I don't know that at this point. We're far away from that conversation. But for a company that is on a very new path, bringing in very aggressive money, very aggressive revenue, to say that this couldn't be a $20, $30 stock here within a year's time from August of 2025, that I think is a very real conversation to say that they could be. And that, I don't look at Applied Digital right now and go like, well, I don't think earnings are going to stay where they're at. I think they're going to move. I think earnings are going to move where they're at right now. I think that the stock price is going to continue to move up where it's at right now. I think that this could be a $20 stock before we know. And I do think by this year, next time, if they continue on this aggressive path where they're at, even if they're not even hitting the quarterlies, for God's sakes, because they're still bringing in close money to get them close to that projection. But it's a lot more money than the company's been making, and business is growing really fast here. So I say all that to say that I look at this and I go, this could become an aggressive stock here in the future. Very much so. Friends, listen, I thank you all so much for being here. I'm very excited where a lot of these companies are going. I think this is a revolutionary moment for a lot of us as investors. I think that, man, what a time to be an investor. I know I say that all the time. I guess I need to make a t-shirt saying what a time to be an investor. But it's the truth that, it's just, there's so many avenues of tech right now. There's defense, security, data centers, for God's sakes. Now we're talking about tech going into healthcare. We could talk, I'm a huge fan of CRISPR. That's a whole nother conversation. I've talked about CRISPR on here. It's just so many avenues for us as investors, like where a lot of us we just have to pick and choose. The buffet right now with investing is so big, and most of the buffet that we are walking down right now, when we pick and choose what we want, it's mostly something to do with tech. But we're seeing all these different tentacles of tech right now in the market, and you just pick and choose what you want to be, because both these companies, at the end of the day, there's an argument say, well, they're tech companies. Well, yeah, that's pretty much what the bread and butter skeleton of them is. So I think they're going to do well into the next, decade here with investing, because a lot of tech companies, they're going to keep making money. Even if it's peanuts, they're going to keep moving up here in revenue. They're going to keep finding more business in this growing market of tech, the need, and where things are going here. So friends, I wish all of you the best of luck. I hope everyone makes tons of money off these stocks. I really do. I want to see everyone do well here. And I just, even if you're not investing in these stocks, learn about them, know about them, because they're very unique. They're very revolutionary. Applied Digital, Tempus here couldn't be more different from each other, but they have, a lot to gain here with the future markets that are being developed here. I do think that we are going into a shift into what these markets are going to look like here in the next decade, where things are going to be. So I'm very excited about them. All right, I'm done. I'm going to shut up. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, everyone.